After 10 years ago, a San Francisco journalist went south to Los Angeles in search of the typical inhabitant. He found him to be a well-preserved, middle-aged, middle-class, two-door Chevron sedan. Today, the sedan import is Spanish-speaking, part banker, part anesthetist, part system analyst, and Mako is being played on the radio. James Roden explained why Los Angeles isn't what it used to be. Los Angeles has in past presented two faces to the world. One flash, one blend, neither very attractive. The flash one is the face of Hollywood, which to many people is synonymous with showbiz entertainment, tinsel, town, and all that's glister yet not good. The blend one is the face of Middle West from which so many Anglos come and which they recreate in California with all the political tolerance, high cultural and consumption sophistication of Kansas City, Oklahoma, and the Bible Belt. Those two faces can still be seen in Los Angeles, but they are no longer do justice to the place. 101 years after the Pelo do Nesta Santo Leirama de Angela de Pergola, the town of Our Lady, the Queen of Angela of the political, was founded. Los Angeles has come of age. It has not in fact take 101 years for Los Angeles to grow up. The city in Sabot founded 1781, but there is scarcely anything of the 18th century to be seen. The oldest house, a Valley Arbor, dates back to just 1818. Even it has been largely rebuilt in modern concrete. If Los Angeles is a city at all, this server will come back to this it is instant city, through together in the twinkle of the age. Insult City has their drug books. People live in them to make money, not to watch over the common good, a consensus of which takes time to evolve. Ruthless citizens make poor neighbors. They are inclined to be criminal or crazy. At best, they belong to a particular church. They turn be many real estate agents, but rather few artists, lots of grasping people on the make, not so many generous ones who have made it. The diversity of human background and activity that makes old city endlessly stimulating is often absent in a new town that has sprung up overnight merely because someone happens to have struck gold. Los Angeles has suffered from most of these new town affiliations. John Gather described it as a highway plant. Rodon Chandler called it a big horrible city with no more personality than a paper cup. In the eyes of much of the world, it is still a town without heart, both literally and metaphorically. The guide 100 suburbs in search of a city has always has an element of truth in it.
那我也吃点，先祷告一下也是。
对呀，他们生面你把面吃了。
哦，他吃了，好了，过了。
Life in these 100 suburbs has, of course, done strange things to people. The freedom has proved too much for some. Los Angeles is neutrally full of crazies and violence once at that. In the murder table these days, it effectively outstrips New York, the local classic of violent crime. Other angels has turned inwards to themselves or upwards to God, search of some meaning in their lives. The self-improvement list in the LA Weekly smacked not so much of the question mind, forever pushing forward the boundaries of intellectual activity, as of the insecure cycle, battered by materialism and perhaps by drugs, starved certainly of culture, trying desperately to survive by reaching out to more and more bizarre forms of self-discovery. Even the columns of church listing in yellow page, everything from an Advent Christian to Wings of Hell and beyond, seem to reflect more the search for religious faith than the discovery of it. It's not a search that outsiders are always inclined to take seriously. How does one kneel down to pray in a drive-in chapel? But Andrews has never paid much attention to outsiders. It's not in their makeup to do so. Eh, Los Angeles was set by people who crossed the United States overland. They came first by Canter wagon, then by rail, then by Ford or Dodge and Chevrolet. San Francisco, by contrast, was settled by people who came by sea. They are East Coast type, brought up with Yankee tradition, familiar with European culture, and have traveled around Cape Horn or crossed the east of Panama. Consider of a wide world. They build a delightful town in pretty position to human scale. San Francisco has charm, which is all more brilliant because it is 2,000 miles from nearest charming town, and as close Los Angeles has neither. Worse, Los Angeles is lumbered with other images, the flash face of Hollywood, of vulgarity, of luxurious consumption. It is no time for Los Angeles to share these images. Unlike San Francisco, Los Angeles do not have an opera company, but it is no longer true, as Woody Allen once inspired was, that the superior cultural achievement in Los Angeles make right turn on the red light. Indeed, it can even do that in the state of New York. Similarly, it will no longer to subscribe Los Angeles as a fundamentally absurd cultural wasteland. People buy nuts and cruises and empty-headed hedonists, or spinning or roller skating or floating in isolation tank. Nor is fair to equal Los Angeles was Hollywood. Entertainment industry is an important part of the city, but it is only one part and in some respects a less important part than many people imagine. The United States may run by movie actor, but Los Angeles certainly isn't. In fact, it has always been wrong to believe that Los Angeles is the same as Hollywood. Just as it's always been wrong to judge Los Angeles by a title one might apply to European cities such as Paris or Rome or London, or to derivative versions such as San Francisco. Los Angeles is a quantitatively American creation, except on its own term. If you do that, you will, as it were, rising above the endless sprawl and find that Los Angeles is no longer a two-dimensional city. It is complicated by a various reflecting the diversity of economy, which is broadly based, strong in fast-growing industries of the information age, weak only in flowering ones of year. It is a growing financial center, with offspring Chicago and San Francisco by most measure, and thus second only to New York. Pitched on the brink of Pacific, and is fast exporting American growth in trade with Japan and other rapidly expanding countries of Asia. Predominantly, its geographical position has already made Los Angeles this most American of the American city to a foreign land. The city of minority, though for long for Latino, will soon make more than half of the population. So foreign in other sense too. For most of the money now being invested in downtown Los Angeles is foreign money. This investment from abroad is a mark of confidence in the city future, but its effect will less reaching than the influx of migrants who will in time participate. For the present, however, the city stands self-confident and secure. Prosperity is in the air. A cultural dawn is breaking. At 2:01, Los Angeles has, it seems, at least become a place to take serious. The terms of the Latino used include all American citizens of Mexican origin, plus Mexico, Cuba, Puerto Rico, and all other Latin Americans, whether residing legally or illegally in the United States. To call Los Angeles City is to use the term loosely. It is certainly not a city in the European sense, a place with street life and with a central which imposes the spirit and essential characteristic of the entire urban area. However small or large, true, there is now a center in Los Angeles, though for 20 years or more there wasn't one. But this spending new skyrocketing downtown has little of Los Angeles about it. It's more like the downtown of Pittsburgh, Atlantic or Low Manhattan, that is area that surrounds it. Ancient Greeks, inventors of modern city, were not recognized Los Angeles as linear descent of their creation. For most of citizens, Los Angeles is a dwelling place, a place in which they happen to live. Los Angeles is not even a city in American sense, except in one limited respect. There's an area which can be delimited on a map, which incorporated and which calls itself the city of Los Angeles. That does not, however, include many of the places that most people think that be part of LA. Beverly Hills, for instance, or Long Beach, Pasadena, or Bangkok, they are cities in their own right. The city of Los Angeles proper is huge, measuring 20 miles at the west and 44 miles at the longest. It's nearly 465 square miles in area. It rises to more than 5,000 feet above the sea. Yet there's another Los Angeles, large still and arguably more near the Los Angeles than most people mean when they speak simply of LA. There is the country of Los Angeles, which extends from beyond Santa Monica in the west to Panama in the east, from Tallahatchie Mountain in north of Long Beach in sea. The highest position point is over 10,000 feet above the sea level, and within its boundary lie no fewer than 81 separate cities, running in size from Los Angeles itself to Vernon. Unfortunately, even Los Angeles County is inaccurate as a definition of area which, to those of whom it's not simply a state of mind, it's probably everything with the annual space that field so famous with smoke. In these pages, at any rate, Los Angeles can generally be taken to mean everything between, on the one hand, the sea on the south and west, and on the other, the mountains that separate this island in the land from desert. The southern border is a big wedge. It lies somewhere between Disneyland and San Diego. The difficulty encountered is trying to define Los Angeles suggests similar difficulties in trying to describe its system of government. The county, with a population larger than 43 of American 50 states, is run by a board of five super directors elected by voters. They have responsibilities for health, wells, planning, road, file, shift duties, jail, and the super court system. In other words, most of the things that matter. Since November 1980, conservatives has outnumbered middle of the road on the board of Superior by 3 to 2. Their leader is P. Centrist, once a footballer, now a land developer, determined like many others to get government off the back of the people. In spite of a record budget last year of 4.4 billion, the three conservative supervisors take pride in having cut health and wealth service, in having reduced by nearly 7,000 the number of county employees, in having brought in private firms to do more monopoly work, and in speeding up the process of issuing building permits to developers. The subject of the five little kings as the superior annals all elect a mayor and council. If they live in a city, more than 1 million inhabitants of Los Angeles County do not live in city. For them, county government is the main provider or non-provider of service. The most conservative act of the new controversial majority on the board of supervision is to attempt to deny health care to undocumented aliens, most of whom are Mexico and many of whom in an unincorporated East Los Angeles. The court justice, which will be overturned, has system it. They are formidable requirements, yet it is impossible not to optimistic about Los Angeles. One may worry about what has happened to the Anglo of tomorrow will find their jobs taken away by them by a silicon chip or their freeway jam because nobody will raise the tax to pay for a new, let alone a subway. In spite of all these troubles, in spite of the fact that it was never really a city, and their possibility of a whole place being ignored in an earthquake is always just around the corner, remains an immensely attractive place in which to live. Los Angeles grew by 155,000 people in the last decade, reaching by 1.3 million. Some maybe have come from climate, some from the job, but the reason for thinking they're staying in a few other places in America, for the world still offers such freedom. Los Angeles offers the freedom to make money to lead a pleasant life and increasingly to lead a stimulating one too. This sort of place in which a rolling stone may want to stay gathered a bit of moss.